Well, here I am. I think I'm stuck in vertical mode, which I guess is okay. Let me just adjust things a little bit here. Good morning, good morning. Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is my start to the day, just chit-chatting at breakfast, brunch. Actually, I just finished brunch a little while ago. And I want to talk about what I'm planning in this quilting stuff. I've got, I'm pretty soon gonna finish my ninth block number 9 of a 12 block series of Victorian um, embroidered quilting. That's that project, and I'll set that aside when I have the 12 blocks done and put it together later. Then I've started a sew-along, which is beginning to form in my mind to be a really great thing. It's going to be all year long. I have part 1 up already. This is the Cathedral Window Sew-Along. I've got some different cathedral windows projects in mind, not just quilts, because that style lends itself to a lot of different things. So I'm going to put together some sew-alongs for small projects, such as a bag. The Cathedral Windows block makes a nice front of a bag. A wallet, a pot, a little, just, it's the nice size for a little pouch of some kind. A wall hanging. The cathedral windows really lends itself to some creative design work for making wall hangings. For example, you can print photographs onto fabric. A lot of people do that. Now, I would be very careful about it, because if you're doing it yourself and you're using an inkjet printer, for example, you're going to want to look into how waterproof and color fast that ink is. But just the same, there are ways, and you can have a company do it for you. Send them a photo, and they'll send you the printed fabric. You can put the photos in the cathedral windows on the smaller squares. So you can make a wall hanging of favorite family photos with cathedral windows. So I'm going to do a number of different projects through the year, and that will be using that method. So I'm going to encourage people to please sign up at a certain point, not yet, because, it's still such a tiny little channel. But I will eventually have subscriber-only mode on chat. But I would like to see people, if you're going to sew along with something, look forward to this. It's going to be a good project. There's that. Those are my plans. The other plan is 2025 was the year of wonky. Everything I did was, like the quilt over there on the rack behind me. You can see that's just sewn together every which way, and what brings it together are the repeated spots of color that repeat through all the patches, and then the uniform sashing, that beige sashing, which shows up in a lot of my quilts, because I had no idea how much fabric was involved in 2 curtain panels that I had. Now, what I'm doing this year is the year of traditional. This is a traditional hourglass patch. And what I'm doing is instead of letting my scraps pile up into a mess and then saying, oh, let's do something with all the scraps, I'm just going to routinely sew the little bits that I have left over into something like these hourglass patches and collect a box of them. Hello, Moonon. Um, and I will just collect them up. Little baggies are so nice. I'll have one baggie that's just for hourglass patches. I'll have another one that is just for half square triangles. And yeah, it's easy to do. You just sew two together and then cut them apart. Sew two seams on them, cut them apart again. And this way, by the end of the year, you don't really have to worry about stash busting because have a stack of these. They will work into a design. Speaking of designs, here it is, my book. Now, the other thing, I joined a not quilt of the month, but a block of the month. And I sent off, I'm waiting delivery on that book that everybody in that group is supposed to be doing according to a particular book that leads you from the very beginning, little straight line patches like this, all the way up through more complicated blocks. Well, in the meantime, I picked this up, the Encyclopedia of Classic Quilt Patterns. I picked this up at the half price books, and there are some, it has all the graphs and stuff that go with the pieces. Now, where's the one that I want to make? Yeah, this one here. Oops, there it is. This is what the scrappies that I'm saving and putting aside. This will use a lot of little tiny half triangle squares and plain squares, charm pack squares or something like that. So that's going to be what's going to use up my stash. There was another one in here. Yeah, like this one is nothing but 4 patches. So I'm going to use this book for all my stash. And that's my plans for this year. I've got to get back to sewing some clothing as well, but that's something I'll just do as the time comes. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing, and 4 people are here. Welcome, whoever you are. With the project of the sew-along for the cathedral window, I'm also going to set that up so that people can put videos into the playlist. There's a playlist that's already started for it. I've got part 1 in there. I'm going to put part 2. Parts 1 and 2 are the basic instructions of how to make a cathedral window patch. I'm going to put part 2 up later this evening. I'll upload that. And then after that, most of what we'll be doing will be using those first 2 sets of instructions. There's more than one kind of cathedral window, too. So later in the year, I think I might also explore some of the others. There are ways of making bigger cathedral windows. There are ways of using less fabric, fewer layers, simpler styles. So I'll explore each one of those in future cathedral windows series. But you're going to want to put that playlist, save it to your channel, and then when it's updated, you'll know. Hello, Carrie. How are you today? If you just got here, I was just talking about the cathedral window project. I'm going to be uploading part 2 later this evening. Right now, I'm just sitting and stitching my stash, my scraps, not stash, but my scraps, my scrap stash. Yeah, you didn't miss much. I was messing with the camera, and then, let me see. Yeah, do crochet. I do sometimes. I did a lot of crocheting last year. In fact, 2 years ago I did a lot because I crocheted myself a nice winter poncho. And I crochet hats. And I also crochet market bags, those French net bags for the grocery store. I like to make those. But I really haven't been doing much crochet lately. Although I was thinking about it because I'm always looking for new ways to put padding into quilts. And I was buying those waffle weave cotton blankets, which are almost like a crocheted blanket because they have the thick yarn and they've got a lot of holes in them, they're waffle weave. And you can do a waffle weave crochet. So I've been thinking I might start crocheting again. And that way I can have a solid cotton or solid wool batting if I want to make an extra nice quilt. Because I don't like using the acrylics and the polymers. Hello, Fortnite guy. Howdy. And I was thinking that making some simple, loosely crocheted, double stitch crocheted squares and putting them into a quilt as you go block might be fun. Because it wouldn't be like sitting down to crochet the whole blanket. But obviously, just like with a granny square, you get, by the time you're done, you have done the whole blanket. It's like I could take these and just crochet one little square to stick to put in it and put the backing on, fold it over and have a little cushion that becomes quilt as you go. I'm really fond of quilt as you go because I live in a very small apartment and I don't have any. If I had the money to buy a long arm, I have no place to put it. I also have no desire to work in a machine shop, which is, I have worked in sewing industrially. I have worked in factory sewing. Maybe that's why I'm not inclined to use a sewing machine. It's too much like a job. But let's open up here. So where are you from, Moon On? Moon On Pa. That's an interesting name. I was just looking at a woman who calls herself Willow. I forget the name of her channel. She's another quilter. But she was talking about doing bear paw patches, blocks. And she was saying they were really difficult, but I looked at it. I don't think a bear paw block looks that difficult. It's just little half-square triangles, two of those squares, and then two plain squares to make the body of the paw. I might do a bear paw patch. Whoops. Donna Lewis. Oh. North Korea, huh? Are you Korean, Donna? Or was he in the American military? Actually, we haven't been in Korea since your grandfather must have been in the Korean War. New Zealand. Oh. North Korea is a pretty scary place. I was watching some videos made by a North Korean woman who made it to the United States, and She was going around. It was her first experience in the American grocery supermarkets and at a mall and going to different American things that we take for granted. And she was just the number of choices we have when you grow up in a place like North Korea, which is just very primitive, very limited. You don't realize, we don't realize how overwhelming all this material wealth is. But yet, one of the ways to de-stress is to remove yourself to a quiet place, get off the internet for a while, get out in the country, don't see too many people, spend a couple of weeks just meditating, and then you come back refreshed. That tells us something about our overwhelming materialism. But it's also a blessing because we don't want to live like the North Koreans do in basically total lockdown all the time, from what I understand. New Zealand has a lot of sheep. I'm really into wool. That's another thing I learned last year. I got into spinning, learning how to spin yarn, and boy, you start to find out all the different kinds of sheep there are and the different kinds of wool they actually make depending on the breed. I got some sheepskin slippers for Christmas, and oh, they are so good on my feet. They feel so good. I don't know why I'd never gotten any sooner. I didn't realize what I was missing. Toronto, Ontario. I had some very good friends, Carrie, back in the 1980s, who were from Toronto. Liz and Renee Trott. They were artists. Well, Renee was an artist, and Liz was a writer. And they needed somebody to help them in their art studio and around the house because they were quite old. In the 1980s, Renee was in his 90s and Liz was in her 70s. They're both dead now. And they needed somebody to speak French because Rene was losing his English as he got into the 90s. He was actually France French. He came from the south of France. And my people are French American from Quebec and New Hampshire. And I grew up in Massachusetts. But I speak French, so I went to work for them for about 10 years, actually, over the years. Was it 10? Yeah, from the mid-80s to the mid-90s. Very nice people. I learned a lot from Rene. He was a really wonderful artist. Mm-hmm. Hello, Lord Joshua, another new name. Welcome. I'm doing fine. I decided that I used to just do something called the daily half hour where I would just come on and talk about the news or whatever. I decided this is going to be my daily half hour now. I'm still doing daily stitchery, but those are more involved with projects that I'm working on and, sew-alongs with other people. But I'm also going to do just this little chillin' chat and whatever, see what's going on, make plans. Work on stash management. That's what I'm also doing this year. I'm developing stash management. I'm getting to the point where I still have a couple of bags of like just junk that I have to go through and throw a lot of it out. But quilting involves working on similar cuts all the time, regardless of what different designs you're doing. You're working with the same fabrics, you're working with cottons and all this other stuff. So, to me, the idea, how did I end up with an extra? Oh, the idea is not to pile up pieces of scraps until you have a whole bunch. Yes, Joshua, I do. I don't exactly live alone because I'm in a community full of people, but alone, I'm not, I'm by myself in my apartment. Huh. I should be able to see people's channels, but when I push the chat, all it does is give me an option to boot somebody. I don't want to boot anybody out. I just like to see what channel you have behind you, you know? Oh, well. Doesn't really matter. It's just I get curious sometimes. So why do you call yourself Lord George Joshua? That's a pretty highfalutin title. Okay, I see what you're up to, Lord Joshua. Whoops. Come on, where's that? All right, what's going on here? I'm trying to... Um, I am just trying to figure things out on how the chat works, and my screen, you know, the problem with these screens is they don't always to read your fingers if you have there. Okay. I'm not interested in people who are running around trying to pick up dates. Okay? It's always a red flag when someone asks a woman if she lives alone, first of all. That right there, you know, that's why I said, well, I live alone, but I'm in a community of people, because I am. But in general, I just have to be able to easily handle this chat, and I'm mad at YouTube because they don't make it easy. There we are. We got a bunch of creeps in here. There. Okay, how to spell Mark. Interesting name. Thank you for the supportive message. I do have a couple of people who have wrenches, and it will take a while for the trolls to get the message that this isn't a good place for them to play their games. And that's the problem when you start live streaming, which I only just started live streaming a couple months ago. And I only started now to figure out what I want to do with it. And what I want to do with it is develop my Cathedral Windows group. I'm actually developing a group with that. And I also am planning to do some sales streams where once I'm better at managing chat and stuff like that, what I'm going to do is set up a playlist for the market. Okay, this is going to be, and it's perfectly legal, okay? I already heard from somebody in one of the other chat rooms. It can't be legal. Well, it is, okay? Especially if you're not in the United States. If you live in Canada, don't worry about it. Texas. It is perfectly legal and perfectly legitimate, and YouTube allows people to use their live streams when they are artists. Go over to Sew Yeah Fabrics. That's all they do is sell cloth. And they do it in live streams. They have people in the chat are asked to go register on their website. And then when they're showing their stuff that they're selling and you're already registered that you're going to be a customer, you can put in the chat, I want, quilt backing number 2, or I want that layer cake number 3, and they put numbers on and they show it and they give you the price, and they have like 4 or 5 people in the chat say, oh, I want number 2, I want number 3, so on. Now, I'm not going to do anything as fancy as that. I'm just going to have like maybe when I get a couple of quilts done and ready to sell, and some small projects that I'm working on things like needle books, and I'm going to do some kits, maybe for doing things like making a pillow. And when I have those ready to sell, I might have half a dozen items. And I've seen quite a few people doing that, and it's the same thing. What you do is you set up the stream ahead of time, let people know there's going to be a registration that's all completely legitimate. I take all my payments through PayPal. If you don't do PayPal, tough. Don't bother me. Okay? That's how I choose to do my business because PayPal is totally open. The IRS and the Texas State Revenue and everyone can look at what I'm doing and they can see that I'm not hiding $1 million and paying and refusing to pay my taxes. For one thing, PayPal collects the tax. When you purchase an item through PayPal, like if I say I'm selling a quilt for $100 plus shipping, PayPal figures it all in and adds the tax on and sends that tax to Texas. Just like every other platform does that. But when I'm thinking about this flea market idea, now I want to be able to present other people who are selling stuff. Let me check the chat again. Yeah, Carrie, that's good. Keep sewing. It's you get a lot out of sewing because it's just really the most relaxing thing. And then at the end of relaxing with it, you got something nice that you can either keep and use or give or sell. And the thing about the flea market system, I figured out, first of all, like my regular chats like this are just open to anybody. And my cathedral window group, that'll be open to anybody. It'll be wide open. People can come in and join and whatever. I'm not doing a Facebook group because I just don't do Facebook. But the flea market one is going to be set up so that people who think they're going to want to purchase something, I'm going to have them register by sending me $1 in PayPal and putting it down as a purchase. Well, no, you can't purchase a membership in PayPal. That's I'm going to sell something, put it that way. Okay, I'm going to sell some small thing for $1. And people who are going to think they're going to want to buy in the flea market from me, they'll send me that dollar in the PayPal with their full legal name and address to which things will be shipped. So I'm going to sell something like a little postcard. That way I can send it to you, verify that that's you at that address. And then in the future, see, maybe we'll be doing this before the end of January. I won't actually have a quilt ready to sell maybe until May or June. So then when I have a quilt ready to sell for probably $100, at that point I might have a dozen people who have registered with that dollar payment. And then when they want to buy the quilt, I'll know exactly who they are. Because I did have a pretty good quilt business going in YouTube a few years ago. And it got hit heavy by the trolls. The same trolls that are trying to mess with me now. I don't care. They're just ridiculous. They don't matter. But I learned from that I ended up having some issues with a couple of people who actually bought things in order to be nasty. Because I didn't screen my customers this way. Now I do. So I won't worry about having people be messed with. If somebody else wants to sell stuff, first of all, communicate with me, let me get to know what it is. But all you will be doing is coming in as a guest. I'll probably use StreamYard or something. Happy New Year to you too. I'll probably be doing StreamYard so that I can have guests come on because I can't seem to have guests come on with the YouTube app. It doesn't really work that way. But you can show what you're doing and then just tell people to go to your channel and deal with you. I won't have anything to do with anything. So I won't be handling any products for anybody else. I won't be handling their money. I won't be doing their shipping. But if somebody, it'll be, and it's not just going to be, oh, sell anything, I'm not turning it into that kind of flea market. But I'm trying to use the system so that people can have fun opportunities and it can be enjoyable. And also people who really are trying to be serious about moving from hobby to business, it's a way to get started. And it's just like the little consignment shops we have in town, which a lot of them got shut down because of COVID, and now we're learning how to do the same thing online. Well, you know something, Lottie, for you. Thank you for the offer, but I don't know you, and I have two moderators who are around who, um, they're not in the chat right now, but I'm still small enough that I'm not too worried. But thank you for the offer. If you have if you put a comment under my video, when this comes back and re-uploads this video, come back and put a comment so that I can go look at your channel and see what you're all about. Because the problem I'm having with this chat is, even though I'm the actual owner of the channel, YouTube hasn't given me an option to see who I'm really talking to, which is a problem. So, and I'll say that to anybody here. If you put a comment under the video, when I hit that, I can see your channel and see who you are. But in the chat, I can't, and number one. And number two, the chat goes away. When this re-uploads as a video, there won't be, all the chat remarks are gone, which is nice. It means we can kind of get together and have fun, and then it goes away. And then if you have something you want everyone to know about, well, then you come back under the video and put a comment there, and that way people can see who you are. Because that's part of the issues, and I think we're all learning. Haha, I bet you could tell, huh? I'm originally from the East Coast, La Madfia. Madfia. I grew up in Massachusetts. My dad was born in New Hampshire, my mother was born in Connecticut, and they met in the middle. But I moved to Texas 26 years ago, right at the turn of the century. I got sick and tired of Taxachusetts and all the crazy madness of that part of the country, which has spread to the rest of the country, but at least down here in Texas, we're still free. So, La Modfia, are you from New Jersey? Or are you from New York? uh, but New York, huh? Upstate, or you're from the city, or, well, you must be from the city, or you wouldn't be using the name Mafia. Now, I know about Mafia because some of my people are from the Boston Irish on my mother's side of the family. And you know about the Boston Irish. Oh boy, I promised I wasn't going to get into the stuff where we rant. That's what happened to Massachusetts. It went, Sometimes when I'm homesick, Modfia, and I miss the people I grew up with, I watch The Sopranos. They remind me of my family. Or certain branches of my family. Oh, Lord. It's going to be a good year. I think, for one thing, I think we've all learned how to maneuver in the internet because the first few years, really, it was in the 20 teens that Facebook went kind of nuts and started messing with people's friendship lists and stuff. And I remember most people were involved in Facebook and not much going on in YouTube. And YouTube was just starting to have live streams because you didn't have StreamYard or anything. It was really, you had to be a pretty nerd kind of computer geek to be able to do a live stream. So around 2016-17, when Facebook messed with people's accounts. Oh, good. Good to know, Modi. Um, all these people came into YouTube all at once. And it was like this big wave of boomers like me who realized, wait a minute, we don't have to be fiddling around with Facebook friendship lists and, sharing and all this stuff. We can just go on screen and talk like we're at home in our own home because we are. And then people came out with Zoom, StreamYard, there's another one that somebody uses. Carrie knows the name of it. The one that Rita uses is not StreamYard. It's Streamline or Streamlab, Stream something. Anyway, as soon as they started giving us these programs and we can just click the screen and show up, it's like, well, we can handle this. This brings it back to a human level. But then what happened was YouTube already had a population of these little geeks playing games who saw an opportunity to have some fun messing with the boomers and the troll culture, the whole thing about being a troll and getting your trolls to go into a channel and take it over because they're still playing games. In the meantime, we're trying to be adults. And this led to, as we all know, some pretty ugly knockdown, drag down fights. But now people get it. They know, oh, that's a troll. Okay, just don't worry about it. Off he goes. And the platforms like YouTube have put those, because we didn't even have the buttons to boot somebody. So that could make it pretty ugly when you can't do anything about it. But now we can. We get, it's almost like you should have this on your front step, a little trap door, so if somebody you don't want to see comes to the door, you just hit delete and it opens and, drops them down to the dungeon or something. Up. There we go. There's the chat. There it is. So how's the weather out there in New York right now, Modi? Peekaboo. Peekaboo te vemos. My New Year's going very well. How's yours? I do all my sewing by hand, and a lot of people think that's crazy. But once you get used to it, you'd be surprised how much you can get done. I'm working on how many I'm working on my, I call it the brain dead Victorian, and the cathedral window, and I always have a scrap quilt, random scraps happening, because otherwise you end up with your house looking like a hoarder's den with bags of pieces of cloth everywhere. Out here, it's like summertime. Like, look, this is, I can go outside like this. You can't do that up north in January. It's really funny. I've lived here for here in Corpus Christi. I've lived here for 10 years. I've lived in Texas for 26. And one thing I've noticed about the Texas winter, it doesn't really get cold until February. And then you might have about 4 or 5 weeks of really cold weather where it gets down to like 40. It might even get to freezing, which, for a northerner, that's not cold at all. But you might hit a couple of days of freezing weather in February and early March. And then by the middle of April, you back up into the 80-degree, 90-degree weather. And it only gets hotter for the rest of the year. It's a funny climate down here. They don't really have 4 seasons. That's what I miss about New England. I miss the distinct spring, summer, fall, winter, the distinct seasons. And where are you, Peekaboo? California. I've been seeing some scary stuff about California's earthquake zone out there. Some of these channels, though, I know they make everything scary, and then you find out, well, earthquakes have been going on a long time. We just haven't seen all the reporting that you have today. But still, it's pretty scary. I'm glad I live here where not too much happens. We might get a bad hurricane once every 6 or 7 years, which that's not too bad. So you're going to be traveling abroad, Peekaboo. Where are you going? Ohio's nice. I've often wanted to go up into that part of the country around the Great Lakes, but I never did. And now I'm not really interested in traveling that much. I like to be in familiar territory. Yeah, California and Oregon. There's somebody up in Oregon. I think it's mainly in Oregon. I was watching his channel for a long time, and then lately I haven't seen it. I have to go see what happened to him. Um, he's he's a homeless guy, but he's not really homeless. It's like that's his lifestyle. He wanders around from farm to farm with sheep. He has about 2 or 3 sheep that pull his wagon that he lives in. And basically, he lives off the land because the sheep graze. He has, he's in an area where they know him and he has arrangements with people. So the sheep will graze along the sides of the road and along the wild lands. And then farmers will have them come in and let him graze the sheep while he, helps them out with something. Sometimes somebody just wants to clear the land of some weeds and stuff, and you can use sheep for that as well. Um, they use goats for that more, but the sheep will do the same thing. And he makes wool felt. He trims them. He makes wool felt. They're meat sheep. They produce milk. He makes cheeses. And he does all this out of this little wagon that he lives in, like an old pioneer. Except he's a young guy. And he said the reason he's doing this is to show people a new lifestyle, which is kind of strange. It's like a fantasy if you could imagine us doing this, where people could just have a few sheep and wander from place to place like they used to. Yeah, let me find out. I've got my phone here. I can see if his channel's still up. I can't remember what the name of it was. I don't know why you'll be watching a channel for a long time in YouTube and then all of a sudden you just don't see it. But it's there, but they just stop promoting it or something. Let me see. I can't remember his... Oh, Katie, the Greenland Quilter is live. I'll probably be shutting down in a little while so people can go there. But I'll put homeless sheep Oregon. Maybe that'll bring it up. Yeah, right on top. Meet the Nomad, prepping for doomsday with sheep. Kirsten Dirksen, Kristen Dirksen, excuse me. She does a lot on people doing sustainable lifestyle. She's got a whole thing on him. Guerrilla grazing. Here, can you see this? Look up Kristen Dirksen, and that's the guy. That's his little wagon. Those are his sheep. I wonder why, but that's not his channel. Where is his channel? Whoops. Huh. There's only hers. Oh, here's his channel. 123 Home Free. That's the name of his channel. Hitchhiking with my sheep into Williams, Oregon. Right there. One, two, three, home free. Yeah, they unsubscribed me. I wonder why. Yeah, he has a community page. He was live streaming just 11 days ago. I'm glad that you guys caused me to go looking for him. I know why I lost track of him. The trolls had beat one of my channels down. What they do is they organize these complaint campaigns. And so I just opened a new channel. I don't get into fights with them. I just tell YouTube, hey, take a look at what's really going on here and let me start over. And then I start over. And if they beat this one down, I'll start over again. But they won't, because YouTube starts to notice when you've got the same group of trolls that keeps showing up to beat down different channels. That's when they know it's an organized extortion ring, which is what most of these trolls are just stupid people with nothing better to do. But a certain group of them, there's 2 or 3 of these groups in YouTube, they will try to get involved with a person, and then if you tell them no, they get mad. And that's called extortion because they're trying to take something from you that you don't want to give them. I don't want to get into all that. But the thing is, like I said, I changed channels. So when I changed channels, of course, I lost all my old subscriptions. But yeah, he streams about once a week, it looks like, or once a month. He has a live stream. And his videos all about how to live this kind of life. I'll tell you, if I was younger, I'd be doing exactly what he's doing. Because I did backpack along the Appalachian Trail back in the 1990s when I was younger. Hello, Jean. Welcome. Kabu Tevemo. Oh, Peekaboo. Okay, I just was reading your name differently and thought we had two people. Peekaboo says if you tell them no to, well, it depends. I mean, sometimes they'll approach your channel and say they want you to talk about a certain topic. That's what they did to me. They wanted me to talk about conspiracy stuff. And I said, no, I'm not into that. And then they said, well, then we're going to take you down. I said, go for it. Stupid idiots. But the thing is, I knew that I could afford to let them because I'm retired. You can't touch my income. See, Texas has a homestead law, which means you can't take the roof over somebody's head. And you can't touch Social Security. So what these people do for extortion, they get you into a fight. Then somebody gets to court. You get so angry you sue them and you take them to court. And then that becomes expensive. They have somebody watching all the time till when you start spending money, they will, in fact, a friend of mine was hit by the same group of trolls. That's how we became friends. He's a musician. And one of them got him into a name-calling argument so that he called that person a name. Then that guy, who's actually quite wealthy, sued him for defamation, for name-calling, took him to court. The judge threw the case out. The guy lost the case. But my friend didn't even realize what was going on because he was just so focused on, I had every right to say what I said. No. I said, no, you understand what's going on here. That guy had written into, when you sue somebody, this was in Florida, so when you're in Florida and you sue somebody for calling you bad names, it's a civil lawsuit, it's not a crime. You tell the court what you want. If you win the case, you say, well, I want you to tell him he has to apologize for saying that, and maybe he has to take out a full-page ad in the newspaper saying, I'm really a nice person and I'm not what he called me. Or, I think he should pay me $5,000 because I lost 3 customers to my business because of what he said. So you get to tell the court what you want, and the court decides. Now, the court may say, well, you're right, he was wrong to do this, but you really didn't get hurt that bad, so, he just has to pay your lawyer. He'll pay your legal fees, and that's it. Or he'll pay your legal fees plus damages. This guy had written that he wanted the court to give him ownership of my musician friend's music, which had been selling on CDs. Back when you used CDs, now they don't do that anymore, but he was publishing his music, and it was sold in places like Walmart, okay? Now, that's not high culture, Walmart, but you cannot be selling your music in Walmart unless you're a professional with 100,000 CDs for them to put on the shelf. You're a big business if your stuff is in a place like Walmart. And this guy who sued him, he had used the trolls to get him into arguments, and then he filed the lawsuit while the trolls continued to get him into arguments. In fact, one of the reasons why I face so many trolls is they're still fighting with that guy, and I'm still sticking up for him because it was about getting ownership of his music, which when you produce something like music, now anything I make, a quilt is a quilt, okay? The only way somebody else is going to make money off my quilt is maybe they'll take it to an auction and get more money than they paid me for it. Or maybe they'll take the design and put it in a book and they'll sell the book, whatever. But I'm not trying to make a living with my quilts. And it's not really a system, but music is a system. Once you are in the professional music business, your music is producing money all the time. Now, he might stop composing new pieces, stop publishing. In fact, he was sick for a while. But the stuff that's still out there selling is still sending him a check, right? So this troll guy had an idea that if he gets him into a fight, the court will give him ownership of that income for the rest of my musician friend's life. Even after you die. That's another reason why they come after artists. Because when the artist dies, the work the artist has produced actually becomes more valuable. And it usually goes
Did you know that you can have permanent teeth in just 24 hours? That's
stupid. Yeah. Excuse me. When an artist dies, if the artist has produced a lot of work, that work becomes more valuable. And some of these trolls are, in fact, and that's what my friend and I, we started looking. I said, look at everybody that they're attacking. They're attacking, number one, they're attacking artists and musicians. They're trying to get ownership of the income from the creative work. Number two, they're also looking for people who were in the news for serious things. And my family was, because I have a nephew. I was joking around with Modi in the chat there about East Coast Mafia. I have a nephew who was actually charged in a mob hit drowning. In 1981, 7 boys whose parents were all part of GE, General Electric Management, were charged in a double murder of the son of one of the union stewards and the son of a guy who worked at the racetrack down in Connecticut, just over the line. And it wasn't, the newspapers didn't say it was a mob hit, but everyone knew it was a hit on the union steward. They would taken out his son. My nephew was one of the men charged in that. He died himself in 2022, age 53, died young. But we were in the news, and I didn't even think twice about it. And then other things happened in my family up there in Massachusetts, and suddenly one of these trolls was contacting me thinking that I was involved in a lawsuit that was going to make $1 million. And I said, I'm not involved in any lawsuit. I don't know what you're talking about. Then she started, well, you could do this and you could do that. And I said, no, I'm not interested. But that's when I was talking to my musician friend, because we said, wait a minute, we're dealing with the same people here. They go after people who've been in the news so they can take charge of lawsuits. If you don't have a lawsuit, they want to help you make a lawsuit. And they put liens. Well, one person, like that guy that was suing my musician friend, he had other people looking for property. If you own your own home or whatever, they put a lien on your property so that when you go into debt because you're busy fighting with all these lawyers and you end up, no one gets rich except the lawyers, they take your property. That's the extortion. They take the creative work of the artists Even if the artist is not making any money, they can take ownership of the work and turn it into making money. You're seeing it. I see people showing up all the time now. There's 2 or 3 people in YouTube have made videos saying there are deep fakes out there. That what's what they're doing now. They're taking clips from people's videos and making new videos claiming that's them. A woman who does a lot of natural products, Rain Country, okay? She's up in Oregon. She does a lot of stuff about growing and prepping your own food and all this stuff. And she sells soaps and lotions and herbal remedies she used to have an Etsy shop, but she just sells it on her website, but whatever. But she started posting people, please, there are people using my face and name in new business offers that are not me. She said, you're only dealing with me here in this channel, nowhere else. And that's going on with everybody now. I've had problems with that. Not that anyone's trying to make any money, but people have used my face and voice to say things I did not say. And so I just tell people, look, I show up on my streams because even though the deep fakes can fool a person, you can think you're looking at the original. They still can tell. If you have somebody check it, they can tell that's not the original video. So I don't do anything except in my own channel. Who's here? Oh, he died of natural causes. He was, honestly, he had complications from drinking too much. All right, this is the crowd we get rid of right here. Let's see. Hide on this channel. The tower N-word, that's the extortion ring. They think that if they do that, they'll now have, there's a woman named Terry Joyce that is one of the leaders in the extortion ring. She will start a campaign calling me a racist because somebody put the N-word in my chat. And then she'll tell YouTube to shut down. Except that YouTube is already on to this. YouTube's listening to me speak right now if they're filing complaints. Because wait a minute, the same people have gone after this same woman through 3 different channels. Yeah, they steal quilt patterns. What's that company? Ravella? Not Ravella. Ravelry. There's been all kinds of drama. The knit and crochet people that were using the Ravelry. And they have AIs now. In fact, there might not even be a person trying to steal anything. The AIs are actually doing some of the planning of stealing themselves. I gave up using my X page recently because it's overwhelmed with people that obviously no human being wrote this garbage that's in there. And I can tell they have an AI that's looking at my channel, seeing what I like, looking at my X page, seeing what I like, and then making up a character to ask me to be friendly. And I'm laughing because it's not even using proper English. It's speaking nonsense. It's obviously Grok is drunk or something. Thank you, Peekaboo. I feel bad about that loss too because I see it as unnecessary. But I look at what went on. He's one of the people that stayed up there. And I said, no. I said, y'all can go to blankety blank. I'm going to Texas. And I love it down here. I mean, Texas has my back because, and I mean literally, because at first when the trolls started, they've called the local police on me I don't know, half a dozen times. They stopped because at first it was like, why are you having all this trouble? What are you doing to cause trouble? It's like nothing. But this is what's going on. Well, then these people are stupid. They think, well, she's saying that's her family, but she's a liar. It's like, You think the police can't check? It takes them about 2 minutes. When they say, how come we're getting all these weird calls about this lady that's only lived here for a few years? They look into it. They talk to people where I come from. They say, that's really her family. And they let me know, these people show up down here, we'll arrest them. That's why I moved to Texas. Because the real mafia does have, well, until recently, Trump raided the governor's office in Springfield, Massachusetts. There's a satellite office of Governor Maura Healey. Maura Healey's one of the worst mafia figures up there. And there was a DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, raid on one of her deputies who was using state diplomatic pouches of Massachusetts official business to ship cocaine. Yeah, they got him with about 8 keys of cocaine in one pouch. I could say where you can go. There we are again, stupid. Okay. But anyway, I don't really feel like giving them any more attention. I'm just explaining it for the people. And now, see, this is the other thing. Jeannie said up there, they do that on quilt patterns too. When this first started back in the 20-teens, nobody really knew what was going on. But between the 20-teens and today, you had all the drama that came out in Ravelry. There's all kinds of issues with all the different commercial. Etsy's had problems because people will set up a shop and then somebody else sets up a copycat shop. So now that people understand why this is, they realize, wait a minute, it's not just that old lady has got some people mad at her. They're serious criminals, and then they look and they say she's not their only target. They're doing this for a living. And I even found out and see what my musician friend and I did. We've been doing this now for about 6 years. And it's really upsetting the trolls because it's having an effect. Once we figured out to map the different trolls groups and how they talk about what they're doing. The ones that are in here putting in the N-word tower stuff and doing stuff like that, they got a Discord. And they show up in other channels doing the same thing. So once we figured out, instead of calling your local cops, like the law says, you call your local police and tell them you're being harassed. And the cops roll their eyes and say, hey, we got 5 serious crimes of stabbings and muggings and shootings. Why don't you just stop going into YouTube? That's how they feel about it, right? But we said, no. We would start talking to the police in the different areas that have, like your county and state in every part of the country has somebody that's trained to look at cyber issues. So you call the routine number and you say, I want to talk to somebody about a group that I'm dealing with online. Who's got that expertise? Because I don't know if I can complain or not. And then they'll put you through to the person who's trained. Well, then you say, look, I'm not in a position to complain here because I don't really want to waste time on these people, but this is what's going on. This is what they're doing to me, and the same person is doing it to that one over there. And you show them the channels with timestamps when they get in. Sometimes they will get into a stream and mess it up as a guest. They'll be nasty and stuff, and they'll say you start asking the departments in different areas to look into if they're getting complaints from other people. Notice if it's the same group. And we did succeed in getting some attention on this. And this is why the trolls hate me, because I'm, for one thing, just talking about the fact that this is an extortion ring causes people to think and realize the police are trained to see extortion as a crime, because it is. It's a crime of theft and threat. But it's really, the police are not social workers, okay? If somebody is hurting your feelings by calling you a bad name, that's not a police problem. They don't want to hear about it. But if someone is setting up to steal your income, your bank account, and they're using white-collar crime, the police realize, well, wait a minute, we do have laws against that. And usually the local police will look at it and they'll say, well, we're going to refer it up to the state police or the FBI. And the FBI is looking at a lot of these troll rings. You know, if you notice the news stories now and then, you'll see one. They're looking at these troll rings a lot more seriously because they realize that there's a whole culture of finding out where they can steal money and finding ways to steal it through social media. But anyway, I'm going to try to see, you know, I've got to, YouTube really changed this chat system. I know you said you like Texas, but if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you choose? I'd probably choose, well, considering what's up there now, I would not choose Massachusetts. They've wrecked it, but I would choose the northeastern, you know, a place where you do get snow in the winter, somewhere up in the mountains. I hiked the Appalachian Trail, or parts of it, a big part of it, back in the 1990s. And again, I went back and hiked some more in 2005. I think I would go up into the Appalachian Mountains. That's where I would go. But I like where I am. Okay, stupid chat. There. Hello. Well, I'm going to close down for now because I can feel my throat's getting itchy, and I've still got to finish my part 2 on cathedral windows. But thank y'all for showing up, and I'll probably make this a habit, sitting there having my coffee and thinking about coming on live. I'll probably be doing this every day now. Okay, have fun, but don't do nothing I wouldn't do. Denise Matteau, over and out. Huh. I thought I ended it.